यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुनातीरावनचारी यमुनातीरावनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी जय राधा गोविंद राधा गोविंद राधे जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सदा श्री श्रीमद His Divine Grace अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी शील प्रभुपाद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव विंद की नामाचार्य शील हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की श्रील प्रभुपाद की निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे all glories to assembled devotees all glories to assembled devotees all glories to assembled devotees all glories all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavatas Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama-shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishthiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, we are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 6. Let's see. Entitled Brahma Satisfies Lord Shiva. Okay, text 37. उपविष्टं दर्भमय्यां दृश्यां ब्रह्म सनातनम् नारदाय प्रवोचन्तम् पृच्छते शृण्वतां सताम् उपविष्टं दर्भमय्यां दृश्यां ब्रह्म सनातनम् नारदाय प्रवोचन्तम् पृच्छते शृण्वतां सताम् उपविष्टं दर्भमय्यां दृश्यां ब्रह्म सनातनम् नारदाय प्रवोचन्तम् पृच्छते शृण्वतां सताम्. Please repeat. उपविष्टं दर्भमय्यां दृश्यां ब्रह्म सनातनम् पृच्छते शृण्वतां सताम्. उपविष्टं दर्भमय्यां दृश्यां ब्रह्म सनातनम् नारदाय प्रवोचन्तम् पृच्छते शृण्वतां सताम्. माताजी. उपविष्टं दर्भमय्यां दृश्यां ब्रह्म सनातनम् नारदाय प्रवोचन्तम् पृच्छते शृण्वतां सताम्. A word to word. Upavishtham, seated. Darbhamayyam, made of darbha, straw. Brishyam, actually brisyam, on a mattress. Brahma, the absolute truth. Sanatanam, the eternal. Naradaya, unto Narada. Pravochantam, speaking. Prichate, asking. Shrinvatam, listening. Satam, of the great sages. Translation purport by His Divine Grace S. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. He was seated on a straw mattress and speaking to all present, including the great sage Narada, to whom he specifically spoke about the absolute truth. Purport: the Lord was sitting on a mattress of straw because such a sitting place is accepted by persons who are practicing austerities to gain understanding of the absolute truth. In this verse, it is specifically mentioned that he was speaking to the great sage Narada, a celebrated devotee, and Narada was asking Lord Shiva about devotional service. And Shiva, being the topmost Vaishnava, was instructing him. In other words, Lord Shiva and Narada were discussing the knowledge of the Veda, but it is to be understood that the subject matter was devotional service. Another point in this connection is that Lord Shiva is the supreme instructor and the great sage Narada is the supreme audience. Therefore, the supreme subject matter of Vedic knowledge is bhakti or devotional service. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroh Shriuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सह गणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च नमो महा हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदवनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामने गौरत्विषे नमः वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे Translation: He was seated on a straw mattress and speaking to all present, including the great sage Narada, to whom he specifically spoke about the absolute truth. Hare Krishna, we welcome all of you to the Srimad Bhāgavatam class. Hare Krishna. Am I audible? No? Yeah, I think it's Hare Krishna. Now it's audible. Okay, sit straight for this. Hare Krishna. So, in this section, we find Brahma and all the other demigods wanting to seek pardon from Lord Shiva. They visit Kailash. And Kailash, they see a beautiful sight amongst lot of heavenly beauty is how Lord Shiva is discussing Srimad Bhagavatam, or you can say the concept of bhakti with Haribol, Hare Krishna. How Lord Shiva is actually discussing about bhakti with the Kumaras, Narada is there, and all the other many other demigods. Lord Shiva is discussing about bhakti to Krishna. So you find, as Sri Prabhupada says in the purport, Lord Shiva is the supreme instructor because he is the one who is the topmost Vaishnava, Vaishnava Namitha Shambhu. And therefore he is also called as the Guru in multiple places in Srimad Bhagavatam. He's called as a Charachara Guru. He's also the instructor to all the living entities, isn't it? Just because, as Krishna says, approach a person who has seen me in truth, Jnaninas Tattvadarshinaha. So therefore, Lord Shiva is called as the supreme instructor because he knows the science of devotional service. He knows how to please Krishna, and therefore he has become a perfect guru. In Chaitanya Charitamrita also it is said, Jai Krishna Tattva Vitta Sai Guru Hai. Kiba Vipra Kiba Nyasi Shudra Kene Nai. Jai Krishna Tattva Vitta Sai Guru Hai. Like that it is mentioned, saying that who can instruct devotional service to others? One is not based on birth, is not one who is born in India or one who is born in a Brahminical lineage, but anyone who knows the science of devotional service. So Shiva here is so great, he's actually instructing Narada Muni. And other times we also find how Shiva is instructing Parvati. Whenever there's, if you put your ears in here, Shiva is actually glorifying Krishna. We also know how Shukadev Goswami, being in his parrot form, actually eavesdropping on the conversation of Shiva and Parvati. And that's when actually Parvati went to sleep. Whereas the Shuka parrot was actually nodding to every and giving a sign of affirmation. And therefore Shiva was continuing. But Bhagavatam is supposed to be very confidential, not revealed to any Tom, Dick, and Harry. And therefore Shiva later on asked Parvati, so which part did you like the best? And she said, I have to admit, I actually slept off in between. But then he said, you were saying, you're giving me affirmation of hearing. And then he noticed on the tree above, on a branch, there was this parrot, Shukha. And he started chasing Shukha. And they went across the three worlds, and finally Shukha entered the womb of the wife of Vyasadeva. So in this way, and at other time also, Shiva, explains about the 1,000 names of Vishnu, Vishnu Sahasranama. And then Parvati says, it's too difficult for me to remember all the 1,000 names. Give me something in short. And then he says, Shri Rama Rama Rame Ti Rame Rame Manorame Sahasranama Tulyam Rama Nama Vranane. Okay, you can just chant Rama Rama Rama. So you find wherever you catch Shiva, he's actually glorifying the Supreme Lord because he himself is a Vaishnava. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says towards the end of the purport, in the last line, he's saying, see, the supreme subject matter of the Vedic knowledge is bhakti or devotional service. In Srimad Bhāgavatam, in the second verse, it is mentioned, second verse of Srimad Bhāgavatam, Dharma projita kaitavatra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. That means the Bhagavat Dharma, the Dharma of the, or you can say the topmost Dharma, which talks about the science of Godhead, immediately kicks out all other kinds of subdharmas. What is subdharma? Subdharma means or refers to dharma to one's family members, dharma to one's nation, dharma to one's relatives, dharma in society, being truthful, being polite. All these kind of sub-dharmas are kicked out of Srimad Bhagavatam, and therefore dharma projita kaitava. Kaitava dharma are kicked out. So in the Vedas generally bhakti is confidential. When we come to ISKCON, we find bhakti is too much. Everywhere there is bhakti. But actually, if you study the Vedic literatures, bhakti is very confidential. It is not to be found easily. It is only to be found and studied by the Nirmat Saranam Satam, means devotees who are very pure at heart and who are free from envy. Only they can understand bhakti. And similarly, Krishna also in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, beginning of fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, what qualifications does he say Arjuna has that he qualifies to hear transcendental knowledge? Anyone knows? Sorry? Okay, non-envy. Yes. Yeah, he says Anusuyave. He also says actually Bhakto Sime Sakha Cheti. You are my friend, you are my Sakha, and you also have no envy for me. Because of which, if I tell my glories, you can digest it. Just imagine now if I start sitting here and ranting about how glorious I am, probably all of you might go to sleep because it's boring. But now if I start saying how glorious one of you are, except you, others will go to sleep. Because it's nice to hear one's own glories, isn't it? And now similarly, if we start discussing about the glories of Krishna, only those who are eager to know about glories of Krishna will sustain. Those who are not on the platform, sometimes our heart still has envy for the Supreme Lord. We cannot continue prolonged hearing of Krishna Katha. So therefore, the Vedic subject matter is a lot. It talks about so many things. And but the most confidential is Bhakti Yoga. You want to increase volume? Actually, the problem is this is just falling, and I have to keep it like this. Yeah. Just make me. Okay, no, I can just keep it in the fallen position. Yeah. So I'll give you an example of how vast the Vedas are. How they don't talk so much about bhakti. Once upon a time, this is mentioned in Mahabharata. Markandeya Muni, he talks to Markandeya Rishi, addresses this story to Yudhishthir, and talks. This is talked about in the Mahabharata, which contains, which is literature for so many other kinds of people. So one story goes like this. Once upon a time, there was a Brahmana sitting. His name was Kaushik. He was sitting under a tree and performing Ghor Tapasya, very intense tapasya. Completely closing his eyes and sitting with back erect and just meditating. So then what happened? A crane came on the tree and it sat on the branch exactly on top of his head and passed stool. So that disturbed his meditation. Immediately he looked up and he saw this crane. So with great anger he hurled a curse, and immediately the crane was burnt to ashes. And then he continued with his tapasya. So now it was time for him to go to different homes for Madhukari to get some to beg some alms. And when he went to one home, he knocked on the door, and one lady opened the door. And he said, Bhavatam Bhiksham Dehi, give me something. And immediately she said, you have to wait. And she went inside. She started cleaning the utensils of the home. Her husband had come. Immediately she removed, she prepared hot water for her husband's feet. She massaged the feet, she dried the feet, she fed him, she put him to sleep. And after everything, probably a couple of hours, she came outside. And then she said, I'm sorry, you have to forgive me because I had to take care of my husband. And he said, what nonsense are you speaking? Don't you know I am the great sage? At least locally. I keep visiting all homes and I'm a great Brahmana performing so much tapasya, and you are keeping me waiting? For you I shall curse you. He said like that. And then this lady said, my dear Brahmana, you might be great, but don't think that your greatness of performing tapasya can have any effect on me. This is because I am a chaste lady. I am a chaste wife devoted to my husband. And therefore, your curse cannot do anything to me. I am not that crane whom you burnt to dust. And he said, how did you know that I burnt a crane to dust? By cursing it. And then she said, yes, by the power of my chastity, I know. And then she said, actually, my dear Brahmana, you have so much to learn in your life. Though you're practicing austerities, you don't have enough knowledge. So therefore, I request you, go to this person called as Dharma Vyadha. In India, this is very famous as the Vyada Gita. Go to this person known as Dharma Vyada, and he will instruct you on the secret knowledge. So then he travels to the region of Mithila, and that's where he meets Dharma Vyada. So when he came to the place, he was expecting probably a hermitage will be there, some sage will be sitting under a tree and he'll instruct me. But to his surprise, when he went to Mithila, in that area he saw a butcher shop. And he was just confused, who is this Dharma Vyada? And then came a butcher outside cleaning his knife. And then he asked the sage, what do you want? And this Brahmana or sage Kaushik, he said, I'm here to meet this person called as Dharma Vyada. And the person said, yeah, that is me. In his mind, he was thinking, what can I learn from a butcher? Because he has such an impure duty. He is very impure in character. He is violent in action. And then he is narrated, this. Of course, the butcher reminded he asked the Brahmana, is it that lady who sent you to me? Immediately he was shocked. How did you know? He said, I know. And then he said, you sit down and I will instruct you. So the butcher started instructing on dharma to this Brahmana Kaushik. And finally he told this Brahmana, you see, with respect to duty, there's nothing impure and there's no ugly. All duty is nice. And ultimately you have to dedicate the fruits of your work to God. Like that he said. And then he said, you see, the cause of my good fortune, even though I'm engaged in killing animals, is because I worship my parents dutifully. He said like that. And therefore, O great sage, I instruct you, leave this asceticism and go back home and serve your parents. Then what happens to this Brahmana Kaushik? He gives up his tapasya, goes home and starts worshipping parents. This is the entire story. You see, now this story is usually quoted sometimes to tell the brahmacharis that you go home and start worshipping your parents, and then your good fortune actually starts. You see, why did I quote this story? Because we want to understand, what do the Vedas talk about? Vedas talk about a whole different kind of subdharmas. They talk about so many subdharmas, one of which is worship of parents. So this story is not wrong, but it is inapplicable to practitioners of Bhakti Yoga. But it is applicable to people who are irresponsible. People who are irresponsible, not taking care of parents, not dutiful, just couch potato, sitting and sleeping at home. For them, these stories are given. You don't have to do big tapasya, just perform your duty. So therefore, in this way, the purpose of the Vedas, if you read the fifth, sixth chapter of the first canto, Vyasadeva is telling Narada, and of course Narada is also chastising. The problem with Narada, Vyasadev's compilation of Vedic literature is, it is too slow to get to the point of bhakti. It's very slow. And therefore Narada says, you should compile a literature where bhakti, the essence of the Vedic knowledge is given. That is Vedaishcha Sarve Ahameva Vedyo. Krishna is exclusively glorified, isn't it? So, therefore, in the Vedas, there are different sections. For example, people who are not religious, that means people who are suffering, they feel, why to worship God? Why should I take up to religion? Why should I take up to righteous practices? I'll try to enjoy this world without performing yajna. So then they start earning some money. They start, Krishna says in the Gita, those people who earn money without offering to the demigods or performing of some sort of sacrifice, they are called as thieves. Stena evahi, he says. Stena means thief. So therefore, in the Shastras, it is mentioned that if you want to enjoy, if you want dharma to produce artha, or if you want artha that will not give you misery, you have to get it from righteous practices. And dharma means yajna dana tapa. What does yajna mean? Sacrifice. Dana means charity, and tapa means austerities. So irreligious man sees that people who are religious, they are actually happier, they're actually more satisfied, they're actually more peaceful, they're strong in the heart, and therefore a irreligious man he wants to get rid of his fear, he wants to get rid of his stress, and therefore he takes to religion. But when he comes to religion, he doesn't let go of his desires for sense gratification. So problems still remain, isn't it? So initially he starts performing something called as karma kanda. So initially one is religious, then one elevates to the portion of scriptures called as the karma kanda, and much of the Vedas is to do with karma kanda. In the karma kanda, it is said, one worships Kali, one worships demigods, one worships all these kinds of different sorts of yajnas, dana, tapa, and worship is mentioned just to get something in return, something material. Like they say, Rupam Dehi, Dhanam Dehi, Rupavati Bharyam Dehi. That means give me a good wife, give me some money, give me some followers, give me some good farm, good intelligence, and therefore they worship. Putra Dehi. Yeah. So, like this, to get something in return, to become happy in the material world, they take to dharma. And that dharma which produces artha is better off than taking out, than claiming that artha which is not produced of dharma. But do you think he's satisfied? No. Why? Like, just like Chitraketu, he produced a son, he got a son forcefully from Angira, but then the same son became the cause of distress. So they find, yes, I got material possessions, but here in this world, the material possessions also give trouble. And how long can I enjoy? Just 100 years. So it is not long enough. It's limited. So now what do? They want to enjoy happiness for longer time. So they go to a Brahmana and ask, how do I enjoy for longer time? And the Brahmana says, now don't aim to stay in this world. Try to go to heavenly planets. Because in heavenly planets, the length of life is very long. Thousands and thousands of years the demigods stay. And not just that, in heavenly planets, people drink somaras. Somaras is nourishing to the body, is intoxication in the mode of goodness, is bona fide. So they can enjoy somaras, and then they can also enjoy fine eating, and they can enjoy women in the apsaras, in the Nandananda gardens of King Indra, and all this without, there's no concept of illicit sex. And the apsaras also remain virgin. So now the Brahmanas say, better you go to heavenly planets to enjoy there, because here you're not satisfied. Then what happens? The living entity again, by performance of dharma, again everything, he goes to the heavenly planets. But is heavenly planets there forever? Is it eternal? No. After spending thousands and thousands of years, then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, immediately, Shini Punya Mattam Lokam Vishanti. Again he has to fall down to the Bhuloka. And again they consult a Brahmana, again they go to heavenly planets. Like this, millions and millions of lifetimes are wasted by a living entity because of search for so-called happiness in the material realm. So in this way, he finds that karma kanda is not giving me happiness. Okay, if karma kanda is not giving happiness, he goes to Brahmana and asks, okay, now what do I do? Then he says, yes, actually there is no happiness in the material world. Then he says, try to understand that which is beyond. And he points to impersonal Brahman. And he points to Jnana Kanda, which is predominantly given in Upanishads. And therefore, these Gyanis, they don't like simple language. Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prachati. It's too simple for them to understand. Just offer a little fruit, a leaf, and a little water and a flower. With little devotion, I'm satisfied. It's too simple. They need something very complex. Like in Vivekananda's one book, it is mentioned that okay, before that, actually, there are some gyanis. They get stuck up in their own word jugglery. One such example is given. They say those who think they know, those who know they don't know. So now you think, wow, what a statement! Those who think they know, those who know they don't know. So they get stuck in this their own word jugglery, and therefore Jnanakanda is also called as a bush because they keep rotating inside that. They get stuck up. Just like Karmakanda is a bush because you get stuck up there, Jnanakanda is also a bush because they get stuck up in the the statements mentioned in the Vedas and speculation. So generally in this world, people don't even come to Jnana platform, isn't it? For example, once there was a boy called as Nachiketa. Anyone heard of Nachiketa before? Yeah. So Nachiketa, he wanted to. He was once standing with his father, and father was in a very, magnanimous mood and giving in charity. And as he was giving charity, people across the universe had come to receive charity. But then once his small son Nachiketas, he saw that his father is giving away old cows in charity. So he was little teasing his father. And Nachiketa said, "My dear father, you're giving old cows in charity. What if what if it's rejected, or will you give me also in charity?" Like that he was asking jokingly. He said yes. The father said, yes, I'll give you also in charity to Yamadutas. And actually in the line for charity, to receive charity, Yamadutas were also standing. So when they heard this, immediately they cut the line and came ahead, and he said, okay, I need my charity. And then the father was forced to give, because Vedic times, whatever you say you have to follow. And with great sorrow, he gave Nachiketas to the Yamadutas. And as the Yamadutas took Nachiketas to Yamaraj, Yamaraj had gone for a meeting, and in that, because of which he was very, very late. And the Nachiketas, that boy, he had to wait outside the door of Yamaraj's abode for 3 days. So when Yamaraj came back, he felt so sorry. He said, my dear boy, you have so much patience that you're waiting for me. So I want to give you 3 boons. You ask me whatever you want, 3 boons. And then he said, my dear Yamraj, first boon I ask you is, how do I, what sacrifices should I perform to become rich, to become wealthy, and how do I learn about dharma? What should I perform? My duties. And he said, okay. And he gave all the knowledge. And second boon he asked was, you see, can you give me back, hand me over to my father, because my father will be in great stress. I was teasing, I was a very naughty boy, because of which this whole miscommunication happened. So if you can put me back in my father's custody, he'll be happy, I'll be happy. Now Yamraj said, okay, be it. The third boon he asked, he said, my dear Yamraj, I've also heard that there is something beyond this world, beyond this Brahmanda, beyond this universe. Can you give me a hint of what lies beyond the universe? Yamraj said, my dear boy, what are you asking? This knowledge is not freely given. This is a very confidential knowledge. You ask me anything else. You're a small boy. I can give you some toys. I can give you some fair maiden. I can give you some palaces, ministers. You ask me anything else of this material world, I'm ready to give it to you. Nachiketas thought for a while and he said, no, all these things are temporary. I want that thing which is eternal and lies beyond the material universe. After scratching his head, Yamraj said finally, yes. And he said, actually, there are two ways to glory that people think. One is people try to gain happiness through flickering, the path of flickering happiness, that is trying to enjoy this material world. Enjoying this material world is like going in a desert. The animal who sees, because of mirage, he sees that there is some water lying ahead. So under the blazing sun, he starts running towards the water. And when he tries to drink water, he only ends up with hot sand in his mouth. That is material life. Then he says there's something called a spiritual life. For that, you have to gain knowledge. Of what? Of who am I and who is spirit soul. And what is the relationship between the two. Like this, Yamraj instructed about devotional service to Nachiketas. So this is just to get us an idea that generally the Vedas don't talk about. Generally, people are not interested in anything that lies beyond matter. And even if it is there, the people get stuck up in arguments or statements, confusing statements, and no one even approaches bhakti. Isn't it? Then finally, he gets sick and tired of this Jnana Kanda also. Because, Shankaracharya says, Samprapte sannihite kale, nahi nahi rakshati dukkhin tarane. Because once Shankaracharya was passing on the road and he saw this old person sitting with his begging bowl and studying grammar, Panini grammar. Then he said, this is not going to save you at the time of death. Because the Gyanis want to do Sandhi Vichhed. They want to take the Sanskrit statements, they want to divide the words and speculate meanings. And Shankaracharya himself said, this is not going to save you at the time of death. Keep this aside and Bhaja Govindam. You fool, just worship Krishna. Like that he says, Shankaracharya. And therefore, after all this, now after passing the Jnana Kanda, the living entity comes to Ashtanga Yoga. In Ashtanga Yoga, some Ashtanga yogis are impersonalists, but many are, they are dhyana avastita tadgatena manasa pashyantiyam yogino. They see the super soul in the heart and they meditate on the beautiful form of the super soul. They become very devoted. But only problem with Ashtanga yogi is there is no bhoga offering. There is no dressing of the super soul. He is already dressed. There is no reciprocation as that is available in path of bhakti. So they only become onlookers of the Supreme Lord. They cannot serve the Supreme Lord. Isn't it? Where the problem with the Jnanis, they merged into Brahman and they're just there at the point of zero where there is no higher pleasure of service to the Lord. So therefore they fall down later on. So finally crossing all of this, the living entity comes to platform of bhakti. In the platform of bhakti, there is reciprocation, there is exchange of love, there is higher taste of service to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord and his devotees. And in this way, he takes, the Vedic way, by study of Shastra and everything, takes millions and millions and millions of lifetimes to come to platform of bhakti. It's not quick. But on the other hand, um, Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport of first verse of Nectar of Instruction, he says that there is the Vedic way, and he gives the Tapasa Brahmacharyena Yamena Niyamena. He gives that verse. He says that Vedic way takes a lot of time, but at the same time there is also just you meet a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, and he engages you in Krishna Seva. He tells you just practice the 4 regular principles, chant 16 rounds, chant the holy name of the Lord, and not just 4 regular principles. There's 64 regular principles mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion. He engages you in Krishna Seva, and immediately you can cross all the step-by-step process and just take the elevator. And therefore, bhakti is called as the elevator process, isn't it? Say once we have elevator, we have to really see who will take the staircase. No one wants staircase. Hard work, unnecessary. You directly take the elevator to the platform of bhakti, and immediately all the problems are gone. And therefore, in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhāgavatam, you will find Parikshit Maharaj, after hearing the description of the hellish planets, he's telling Shukadev Goswami that what can we do so that the living entities don't have to suffer in the hellish conditions? And Shukadev Goswami says that no problem. If there is tendency to commit sin and the living entities commit sinful activities, let them do karma, let them take shelter of karma. That means let them do prayashchitta. But then Parikshit says, what is the problem with prayashchitta? Prayashchitta means atonement. You do it again. He gives the example of Manye Kunjara Shauchavat, just like elephant bathing in water and it comes out and again bathes in the dust. Your tendency to bathe in dust is not gone. You can take your bath in the river millions of times, but if you have a tendency to come out and again bathe in the dust, what is the use? So Parikshit says this is useless. So I think this is just like elephants bathing. I cannot take shelter of karma. Atonement is simply useless because the tendency to sin is still inside. Then Shukadev Goswami says, very good. Then probably you would like the solution of jnana, where one does vimarshanam. Vimarshanam means one analyzes. It is an intellectual process where one sees the disadvantages of performing an activity. That means why not to overeat? Then he says, okay, if I eat, or if I do overeating, then my digestion fire is affected. Then he says that my insulin is spiked, then I become unhealthy, I become this, then how can I perform yoga? Therefore, no overeating. But still the desire is not gone. And the example given is sometimes the grass is grown and you just trim the grass. But because there are roots still embedded below the ground, again the grass can come out, isn't it? Or similarly, you can say for a jnani, because of vimarshanam, he settles all the dust, but he doesn't purify it. Example given in Shastra is like Vishwamitra, who was performing tapasya for thousands of years, but one Menaka agitated the lust settled at the bottom. Just like you take a glass of water, so you just keep it on the table on a flat surface. What happens to the dust? Settles. But then you take a spoon and move it around. Again it rises. So sometimes for the jnanis, when they see that this dust is settled, they think my heart is purified. I think I am only God. That's how they get confused. But they don't see the lust is still there. So he says, Parikshit says, even this doesn't work. And finally, Shukadev Goswami appreciates Parikshit and he says, Ke chit kevalaya bhaktya vasudeva parayanaha agam dunvantika snena niharam iva bhaskaraha. He says, yes, Parikshit, it's only by the practice of bhakti yoga. Only when you practice bhakti yoga, the sinful tendencies, all kinds of sinful reactions. Papam, what is it? Kutam, Bijam, Falonmukha and Prarabdha. All are destroyed. The tendency to commit sinful activities, tendency to act against the will of the Lord is self gone. And therefore, yes, this practice of bhakti is the topmost because it purifies the heart completely. And not just it purifies the heart completely, it establishes Krishna as irrevocable fact. Bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. You cannot remove Krishna after that. It's very difficult. Just as the gopis are praying that, my dear Lord, sometimes we want to forget you, but our problem we cannot forget you. We have other problem. We want to remember Krishna, but very difficult, isn't it? So then the practice of bhakti establishes Krishna in the heart. So like this, we find how the platform of bhakti yoga is superior to all other paths. It is By the practice of Bhakti Yoga under the direction of spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master coming in bona fide parampara, immediately one comes to the highest platform without having to undergo the yoga ladder. Is not required. So basically, we are saving a lot of time. Sometimes devotees ask, Prabhu, I've been chanting Hare Krishna for last 10 years. My heart is still dirty. What should I do? Go on chanting. Isn't it? Why? Because you just saved billions of lifetime. So at least you can spend 10, 20 years, isn't it? And more. So therefore, Bhakti Yoga is said to be the topmost platform of yoga. So today is also the disappearance day of Shripad Madhvācārya, and maybe remaining time, 7 minutes I will just spend to discuss something on Shripad Madhvācārya. I mean, as all of you know, Shripad Madhvācārya is the Amsha of Vayu. He's considered as an incarnation of Vayu, and Shripad Madhvācārya was born in Pajika Kshetra, which is very close to Udupi, and he is, of course, in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, isn't it? So he is one of the propagators of the Sampradaya, and in the Padma Purana it is said in that verse Sampradaya Vihinaye Mantaste Nishpalamataha, and it mentioned the four Sampradayas, and it is said the propagator of the Madhva Sampradaya, Brahma Sampradaya is Madhva. It is said Madhvācārya. And in Navadvip Mahatmya of Sri Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he mentions that once Srimad Madhvācārya, along with his followers, they went to Navadvip, and they were lying down in what is that? Modrudumadvip. Yeah, you know Modrudumadvip. Have you been to Modrudumadvip? Okay, I've heard it for the first time yesterday when I read. So they were lying down in Modrudumadvip when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in his golden form just to Shripad Madhvācārya. And he said, of course, Madhvācārya was astonished to see the beautiful form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said that you are one of my closest servitors. You are my intimate associate. So please go on, go out to this India and let your teachings spread, just so that the wrong, false understanding of Mayavad is completely uprooted. Then I shall appear and I shall connect myself with your Sampradaya and continue the pure teachings that you have given. Like that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Madhvācārya. And of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu disappeared after that. And Shripad Madhvācārya, in great separation, it is mentioned that he was astonished, at the same time he was crying, he was shedding tears. And again, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to the celestial voice and he said, don't worry, continue worshipping me secretly in your heart and you will come to me. So, when I heard this for the first time, I couldn't believe it. But now my faith in Bhaktivinoda Thakur has increased. So I choose to believe it. At the same time, you see that actually in the Sampradaya to Sampradaya, there are no differences. Sri Prabhupada said, the differences only exist on a superficial platform for the superficial devotees. The essence of all the Sampradaya is the same. As we know, in the Padma Purana it is mentioned, why Vishnu takes the false incarnation of Buddha? Because people, the Brahmana class, they became irresponsible and misused the knowledge of the Vedas. So to make a distinction of the proper followers of the Vedas and the rascals, Buddha preached ahimsa to take away the not so genuine people. And he said Vedas are useless. He said we are Nastik. And then he also Vishnu had instructed Shiva to take up the false incarnation of Shankaracharya. Mayavada Masat Shastram Prachannam Bodham Uchyate, it is said. That means you should come and preach about this false philosophy of Mayavad, which is also called as Buddhism. It's another way of saying Buddhism. So Buddha preached zero, Shunyavad. Then Shankaracharya preached Mayavad or oneness. So he preached one. Then came the Vaishnavacharyas, and Madhvācārya preached about two. Yeah, two-ness. So he wanted to make a clear distinction about how soul and God are different. It is not that other teachings were not accepted. Srila Baldev Vidyabhushan in his Pramaya Ratnavali, he incorporates, he says how the teachings of Madhvācārya or how the teachings of the Gaudiya Sampradaya is very well in line with Madhvācārya, and he says through 9 points, the 9 tenets of Madhva's philosophy is proven in the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He writes this Pramaya Ratnavali for that. So when I read that, at least just superficially, when I read that, I at least understood things are in line. So like that, then why would an acharya not focus on pure love of God? It is because of time, place, circumstance. You see, Buddha is not anyone, he is Lord Vishnu. Shankaracharya is not just anyone, he is Lord Shiva, whom we are talking about. And similarly, when we also have Ramanuja, Ramanujacharya. Ramanuja means is Lakshman, Anuja, the younger brother of Rama. And similarly, Madhvācārya is also Vayu, who in this time of creation is a pure devotee. So in this way, all are the Lord are the pure devotees. They're all coming in different sampradayas just to teach pure love of God. But of course, uh, the complete, fully blossomed picture of love of God is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why didn't others preach it? Because of time, place, circumstance. So they cleared the area of all the nonsense of Mayavad and Buddhism. They got the sincere followers and made the platform clear, put up the spotlight, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came with love for Radha and Krishna, the Madhuri Ras and all that. So therefore, we see all the Sampradaya Acharyas, they're all well in line with the understanding, isn't it? But it is all to make way for the Supreme Lord, to bring down the Supreme glory, like that. And we also find in Srimad Madhvācārya's life that he has written so many books. And Srila Prabhupada, in one purport, he says in Chaitanya Charitamrita, anyone wants to know more about Srimad Madhvācārya, they can read the Sumadhva Vijaya. And so Srila Prabhupada has given permission to do that, to study about Madhvācārya. And I mean, there are many pastimes of Madhvācārya. Actually, Ramrai Prabhu messaged me saying that make sure you speak about Madhvācārya. Only thing I'm out of time. So maybe 2 minutes I will take just to speak anything. Once Srimad Madhvācārya was, when he was a small boy, his father had given a loan. Actually, he had taken a loan. And in those times, you know, the money lender would come to the home and he would sit and he would not take any food. And the custom was you don't take food without giving to your guest. And the money lender said, without you giving back my loan, I will not take food. So everyone had to do fasting. So the small boy, his name was Vasudeva at that time, Madhvacharya's small boy name. And he came and he asked his father, why are you not eating? His father said, you see, this guest has come and he's not eating. Why is he not eating? Because I've taken some money from him, but I don't have enough gold coins to give it back. The Vasudev, little boy Vasudev said, oh, that's not a problem. He went out to the tamarind tree, collected the tamarind seeds, and he said, this will do it. His father thought, I mean, how will tamarind seeds, I've taken gold coins, he's going to give tamarind seeds. And he just became hopeless. But Vasudev went to the money lender, and as he handed the tamarind seeds in his hand, the tamarind seeds became gold coins, exact in quantity to what he had lent. So in this way, the miracles of Madhvacharya started from his early childhood. And then at the age of 8, he met his guru Achyuta Prajna. And by the age of 12, he had taken sannyas. And he was given the name Purna Prajna. And Madhvacharya also, he understood that Mayavad, there is some serious fault in Mayavad. And he questioned when one Buddhist or someone had come. He said, why do you offer respects to your guru if you are your guru? That was one of his strong arguments. Because the Mayavadis say we are all one. But then we see in the disciple-guru relationship, disciple offers obeisances to the guru. So his question was, why does disciple offer obeisance to Guru if both of you are one person? And immediately he defeated the Mayavadi scholar. And later on, he was also called as Ananda Tirtha. Any idea why he was called as Ananda Tirtha? He was also called as Anand Tirtha. He also got the name of as Madhvācārya. Then he traveled length and breadth of the country. He met Vyasadeva in the upper Badri, which is not reachable by the normal human beings. And there Vyasadeva read his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, and he said, "This is the best commentary." And Vyasadeva showered all his blessings, and he told Madhvācārya, "Go you continue preaching and establish this Madhva Sampradaya, the Brahma Sampradaya, with your teachings." So therefore, he became the main proponent of philosophy, of the Dvaita philosophy. And in Dvaita philosophy also, what did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu take from each of the sampradayas? From this sampradaya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took two aspects. One is Mayavad Khandanam, destroying the Mayavad philosophy like anything. And the second aspect of Madhva Sampradaya that he took was Sri Krishna Murti Sevana. That means he established the service to the deity of personal form of Krishna, which was not otherwise followed before, or to that to that state of strictness. And to conclude with, Sripad Madhvācārya is worshipper of Udupi Shri Krishna, and Udupi is called as the South Vrindavan. And how did this Udupi Shri Krishna come about? Once he was performing his meditation in Malpe beach, and he saw a huge storm, and the ship was stuck in that storm. So he is Vayu himself. So what did he do? He took his Angavastra and he just waved. The entire storm went away. So in great appreciation, the ship came to the shore, and the captain, came and fell at the feet of Madhvācārya and said, "Thank you for saving me from this storm. My ship carries goods. So please feel free to go to the ship and you can take whatever you want." Madhvācārya said, "I'm a sannyasi. I don't need anything material." He said, "Okay, I have some gopi chandan, which he would use as a ballast just to keep things stable." He said, "You can take some gopi chandan." Madhvācārya said, "Yes, I can take some gopi chandan." So Madhvācārya went onto the ship. There was a huge block of gopi chandan, and he picked it up because he's Hanuman, very strong. Immediately he picked it up and he brought it down. So as he was carrying the gopi chandan, it broke, and when it broke, there were two deities of Krishna Balram. So today in Udupi, when you see there's a deity of Krishna, and in near Malpe, there's another deity of Balram, which is not very famous. Only ISKCON devotees go there, or local devotees. But Udupi Shri Krishna became very famous. And where did this Udupi Krishna come? How did he end up in the block of Chandan? When Rukmini and Devaki, they were in Dwarka, they wanted to worship the small childhood form of Krishna. They got this great desire. So Krishna manifested this deity of Udupi Krishna, where in one hand he is holding a churning rod, as if he's stopping Yashoda from churning, and then in the other hand he's holding some ropes. So that's the Udupi Krishna form. He manifested this deity and gave it to Rukmini, and it was worshipped by Rukmini for a long time. And that deity passed on to the hands of Arjuna, who worshipped it for a long time, and then he hid it at the end of Dwapar Yuga. So then what happened when this, people collect Gopi Chandan means that clay. When they collected clay, it went into the clay. So how Krishna made his way to Madhvācārya, you can see. And that's he is what is worshipped, who is worshipped in temple, in Udupi temple today. And later on, one great devotee, Kanakadas, he came and through one window he wanted to get darshan. The Supreme Lord, out of great devotion for Kanakadas, immediately turned. And that's the glory of that place also. How the Lord reciprocated with his devotee is there in that city of Udupi. So there's some things to share about Madhvācārya. There's so many things more. But we'll pause here on account of time. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Grantha Srimad Bhāgavatam ki, Shri Prabhupada ki, Thai Gaur Premanand. Sorry, I could not give any time for Q&A because I talk about Madhvācārya. Hare Krishna. Breakfast. I'm going upstairs.